I would legitimately like to know if I'm the first to put a Speeduino into a Jeep Comanche. Now, I'll be the first to admit I am by no means the first to put a Speeduino onto an inline-6 Jeep engine. That for sure goes to the man DC Works. It seems like this guy's actually been in the Speeduino community for a little bit, so I gotta shout this dude out. If nothing else, well, hold on, wait a sec. That's a straight pipe inline 6 right there. Anyways, if nothing else, homie legitimately has some good videos on trying to actually like get you set up to leverage your Speeduino. So like big shout out to DC Works, absolute legend. Now I'm obviously not going to be as cool as this other dude I got to shout out. I hope I don't butcher your name, bro. Niam. Oh, I butchered his name. It's freaking embarrassing, bro. Stupid American. Niam's garage has, look at this test bench, dude. I mean, go. That's so cool. Again, another absolute legend laying the foundations for me to follow along on. You know what I'm saying? Man, I'm excited. Now, it's looking like these guys used a different trigger setup than I'm going to be going for. I'm using the stock Renix trigger system. Renix was the ECU that came on the earlier Jeep Cherokees and Jeep Comanches, maybe even some Wranglers. I don't know for sure. Wranglers are just not my forte, we shall say. Anyways, I've been procrastinating on this project for just way too long. Once heard Theo Von say, nothing changes if nothing changes. Well, brother, it's time for things to change. I'm going to have to start making some of the mistakes on this project that, are inevitably going to help me find the right answers. I guess the first thing we should do, so that way it makes a little more sense as I start releasing subsequent videos on this, well, that first thing would be to actually show you what little we have done. Basically, this is definitely a prototype. It's not going to be great the first time around, but the second time around, maybe we can get it a little bit better. So, here's where things are at. There's basically two main parts of this project. There's the hardware side of thing, actually getting all of the sensors plugged into the new ECU, and then there's the software side of thing, actually configuring your ECU to work with all those sensors and inputs and outputs and all that stuff, right? So, how do you reverse engineer your vehicle so that way you can figure out which wires on the old ECU go to, which spots on the new ECU? Well, there's this wonderful little thing called a Haynes manual. They have all sorts of vehicles that they will cover. And in the back of them, a lot of times they'll have awesome little diagrams that'll show you. In my case here, it's the ECU. Here's all the different sensors and all that good stuff, right? So I actually had to spend a lot of time reverse engineering this. I know, stay with me. This is extremely boring. Let's spice in some B-roll so you got a little visual candy. In my case, I was able to put all of the pins from the old ECU into a header that would actually plug into the new ECU. Obviously, the big thing is make sure you don't just leave the ECU dangling in a footwell. I ran a bunch of wires into the cabin so that way I would have power for all the different switches and relays and that stuff. New fuse block to make sure that everything stays kind of safe. Of course, it's an absolute mess, and this bundle of wires is going to need to get organized somehow. So, I don't know. We'll clean it up. We have to run a power line to the injectors. So pull the injectors out of this little harness that runs towards the firewall and, give them power wire. I did a nasty little butt connector. In fact, this butt connector was just so nasty, and I, kind of didn't even route it around that tube correctly. So whatever. Nasty butt connector, gonna have to replace this and do it upright eventually, but it'll power the injectors for now. This is how I ran my grounds. Again, very rinky-dink stuff, but it'll get us started. When I started this, I didn't actually know how many switches I was going to need, and ended up switching to these square housing switches Everything's still working pretty well, and really only the starter switch remains in this prototype switch holder thing I made. It works though. And then the final thing that I actually started on was a conversion to open cooling. I also plan on including some E-fans on this, but with this completely cheap single row radiator, it's going to be questionable if it's worth my time. I don't know. We'll figure that out later too. The final thing to worry about is the software. To edit all this and manage the actual tuning of the ECU, we use Tuner Studio. I know almost nothing about this application. It is extremely uncomfortable to speak with any sort of authority on the various settings that I'm putting into place here to get my Jeep started. I'm definitely going to create an actual Speeduino forum post on, hey, here's my build process, and I'm going to try and get some feedback from the community on, more optimal settings or maybe mistakes I'm making, things like that. It's going to be a whole lot of guess and checks, so there's not really much that I can describe or show you right now. The only, as far as the content of tuning is concerned, the only really big concern there is, well, I've got a really crappy laptop for tuning, and I can't really use it to record videos. So we're going to have to figure some stuff out, to say the least. Anyways, should be a good time. That's it. Software, hardware. I'm scared crapless of this project, but gotta do it, man. Face your fears and all that, right?